This is your Chargers linebacker, Daiyan, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. This is your first time tuning into the show. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Good morning. Happy Saturday to everyone that is here joining us on the live show today. As Dan and I always say, we love talking to everybody, especially as it ramps up to game day. And Dan, there is a intriguing matchup coming up this week as the Chargers start their first of a 3 home game stand against the visiting Tennessee Titans. And it's interesting because after this game, some really interesting matchups. So lots to get into, lots to break down. Obviously going to be answering your questions throughout the duration of this show while breaking down the key matchups for the upcoming Tennessee game. But Dan Wolkenstein, first of all, it is 8 o'clock here, Pacific time. How many cups of coffee? Are you awake? And are you ready to go?
How many cups of coffee? 1. That's why I was 1 minute late. I made my latte this morning.
So it's your fault.
Yeah, I'll take it. But look, the latte art is so good. I don't know if you can see it, but it's there. It is there. I got latte art brewing here.
You did not do that, by the way.
No, I did.
You did that.
I 100% did that. Yes. I will show a live video later of you doing it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just so happened to manifest my amino energies, my BCAAs, after my morning workout this morning. So I don't quite have the creative, what would you say, barista-ness that you do.
You didn't do that all by yourself, did you?
You know what? How? Just put a bunch of vitamins, minerals, and somehow I can wield aluminum very well in fancy colors. That's what I do.
Attaboy. Yeah. Exciting time for Chargers fans. 5-3. Again, match the win total of all of last season. Please do not underestimate this game and do not let it be a trap game. I'm talking to fans. I don't think I have to talk to the team itself because they have already gone through their trap game, as Jake has said, going up against that Cardinals team and laying an egg, at least on offense. A fun matchup. I think one that the Chargers should be able to feast on a bit. We'll get to some of the matchups, some of the injury updates. But Jake, how are you this morning? Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday indeed. Feeling good. Woke up feeling good this morning, not as sluggish as I had been throughout the week. Got the morning workout in, got the shower in, and ready to go. We're cooking with gas now.
Yes. Let's see. Charles Mott says, who going to SoFi tomorrow? I will be there with family in tow. Chargers fans, if you are going to be at SoFi tomorrow, put it in the chat. Welcome to Chargers Unleashed Live, by the way. For folks who have not done this before, welcome. For folks who have, you know the drill. Put up your comments, thoughts, questions, and we'll go ahead and put them in the chat. Leave them in the comment section. We'll do our best to spread them in. Jake, before we get to all things Chargers versus Titans, let's talk about our friends, Pay the Bills.
I want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance of weekly prizes and a share of up to $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Thomas Hawley, first time watching you live. Welcome, Thomas. Let's have some fun today. Daniel Bridges says, I will be there. Matthew Dahl says, good morning. Feeling sick today, but I'm still watching you guys every week. Bot up.
That's the gamer. Matthew is the gamer. Matthew is currently doing his Michael Jordan sick game contribution to the show today. I love it.
Carson Junk. Good morning, Jake and Dan. Let's start us off with a question, Jake. Any news on DJ Chark? Asked Brian Lewis.
We all expected this time last week that he was going to go against Cleveland. And then we woke up on Sunday morning to the surprise that he was not going. It's hard for me to say that would happen 2 weeks in a row.
I haven't seen it happen once. That's never happened before that I've seen.
It didn't make sense considering that leading up to that Browns game, he was a full practice Thursday and Friday of that week. And then to not have him go, I don't think it was anything as it relates to a setback. Who knows why that decision ended up being made, but surprising nonetheless. I don't foresee that to be the same issue this time around. So would I expect DJ Chark to be out there on Sunday? Yes. Not cautiously yes, but yes.
I'm cautiously yes, to be honest, because I don't know. There's nothing that made me believe that they were not going to do it last week. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, he should be there, at least according to all of the pictures and stuff you're seeing from the team. He's probably going to be there. Yeah, forgot. Look how Chark even has his jersey posted during the uniform kit post last week. Talk about a tease.
Exactly.
Yep. So to set the stage on this one, Jake, make no mistake about it. And it seems odd for the most part of this season. The Chargers, it feels like they have gone up against so many good defenses seemingly every week, or defenses that have lived up to its potential, if you will. And again, we're talking about a Chargers team that has gone up against the only losses they've had are against division leaders at this point. They've lost to Chiefs, great defense. They've lost to the Steelers, great defense. Cardinals, all of a sudden, their defense is looking pretty good. They're above 500.
They weren't that good of a defense leading into that game, and then someone hit a switch.
Leave it to the Chargers. Leave it to the Chargers to make them good. But again, they're going up against the Tennessee Titans team who is a top 3 defense in many statistical categories. And their offense is bad. I'm not going to say anything about it. But Chargers offense hasn't been exactly roses all season. They've gotten better as of late. But again, this seems more like a good on bad on both sides. Good defense versus an average offense for the Chargers so far, and a great defense versus a bad offense of Tennessee. So Chargers defense gets the checkbox in terms of advantage. Titans defense probably gets the advantage on that side. Coaching, you got to give it to the Chargers. But Jake, what do you kind of see as the overall setup for this game?
Like we've kind of witnessed over the last couple of weeks, I think that as much as we would like to talk about Jim Harbaugh's philosophy and Greg Roman's philosophy when they first set foot with the organization in terms of what they were going to do, we talked about it. Many other people talked about it. It was just right in our faces. The run game was going to be established. That was going to be the focal point of the offense. And it was going to be power, smash mouth football. Well, for the first 2 weeks, it may have looked like that. But doesn't those first 2 weeks and the Raiders and the Carolina Panther game seem just eons ago from what
Yes.
this offense has looked like recently? Like I said, I think that bye week came at the perfect time, not just for getting guys healthy, but it gave an opportunity for Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman to go back to the drawing board and say, how can we become more efficient on offense? Because this is where we had been struggling recently. Our defense, amazingly, all things considered, is still keeping us in games. But how do we get more efficient on offense? And lo and behold, bye week passes, Justin Herbert gets healthier, and you open up the playbook a little bit more and put the ball in Justin Herbert's hands while still having a nice complement of the running game. But I think that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman over the last few weeks have leaned very much into what Justin Herbert is and has been. And when you combine that with the likes of a Lad McConkey,
The lads of a like McConkey.
lads of a like McConkey and Quentin Johnston's game last week, while still complementing your run game and being a little bit more efficient with your targets and your playmakers, this is turning into a much more balanced offense. And I think that this is going to be the trend that's moving forward. Now, Greg Roman alluded to this, that one of their biggest focuses going into this game was nullifying the 3-and-out stalls, because we saw that way too much in the second half during that Browns game. Yep. Defense has 5 turnovers if you combined, 3 interceptions, a blocked field goal, and a 4th down stop. And the Chargers only ended up coming up with 1 score out of that. They need to get better on that, because against better teams, when they face them down the road, and they will, you get those opportunities, you need to capitalize on them. So I like the fact that that was a big focus of Greg Roman this week. This is definitely something that I think that you can execute well against this Tennessee Titans defense. And I really think that that's going to be the message. But everything is going to be going through number 10 once again this week. No questions.
Yeah, we'll start this week off Chargers offense versus the Titans defense, because I think that's where this game is won or lost. If the Chargers score 20, they probably win, like we said every other week so far this season. Jake, before we get to that, we have a voicemail that we got to get to. And we also have questions about the trade deadline coming and going. So let's get to what you got to do first, voicemail or trade deadline talk?
Let's do trade deadline talk.
Chargers stand pat at the trade deadline. Lots of discussion about possibilities that they could have gone for. In the end, they end up staying pat. No trade. What say you?
I think that this could have been a different scenario if DJ Chark played against Cleveland. And I think that that was one of the biggest things that why we hadn't heard anything leading up to the trade deadline or any moves that were made prior to Cleveland's game. I think that that was because even Jeremy Fowler was saying towards the end of last week that the Chargers were quote unquote window shopping as it relates to possibly making a trade for whatever position it would have been. I think them not having DJ Chark, but also you have Quentin Johnson that comes off his first 100 game of his career, and the Chargers pretty handily still ended up beating the Cleveland Browns despite not having DJ Chark out there. I think as it relates to the receiver conversation, because we knew that they were in on the Deontay Johnson trade when that trade had taken place the week before. Then you go out and perform that way against Cleveland. Then we heard days later that they were interested in acquiring Rashawn Lattimore. I think that they were in on a number of different trades.
Window shopping.
Window shopping, yes. But in the big picture, would you have liked to see them strengthen possibly the secondary, possibly the interior of the defensive line? Some people would say, hey, is there a guard or a center that could go out there and get at this point right now? And then obviously it came to wide receiver. But I think that ultimately when it came down to it, Chargers liked what they had. If you could have made an influx to a position, of course, I think that Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz were going to jump on it. But in the case of Rashawn Lattimore, there was a reason why the Washington Commanders got him. You saw what they had to give away for that much capital when a lot of other teams were not, and that's including the Kansas City Chiefs that were really making a push for him. So in retrospect, you look past this game, and I say this just in this circumstance, there could be a number of guys that you're also getting back after this week. And it comes at a good time when you're going up against Cincinnati, Baltimore. So it may be the healthiest Chargers team that we have possibly seen since week 2 that could be returning next week. And I think there's a lot of factors that went into it in terms of why trades weren't getting done. Obviously, it takes 2 to tango at the end of the day. And then just your overall roster construction of what you got when you have guys coming back. So I think the Chargers looked at it. Price tags didn't work for certain situations. Doesn't mean that they weren't interested. And here we are.
Yeah. So again, this is a practice of me being honest and objective, tethered to reality, not just hope and optimism here.
I love how you have to put that as the context before you give your explanation.
Thinking about the trade deadline as the 24 hours, 48 hours ahead of it, and even during the day of, the sentiment that I had in my head was if a team feels that it is in the running for contention, they try to make their team better. And you look at some of the other teams in the AFC and the NFC, almost every single team above the Chargers got better at the trade deadline. Almost every single one of them. Look at the Ravens, they made moves. Look at the Chiefs, they made moves. There's a lot. Steelers made moves. Some people made moves that I was like, why are they making moves? Like, what are the Cowboys doing? I don't know. There's some.
Jonathan Mingo is coming to save the Dallas Cowboys.
Look, Rashawn Lattimore would have been nice. Some of the players that you saw moved would have been nice. But you don't just make a move to make a move. And I don't think that this Chargers team was just sitting on their hands waiting. Like you said, they were window shopping. For the right price, would have done it. And I'm glad you look at some of the contracts and some of the trades that were made. There aren't many that I would have said yes to. I wouldn't have done the Lattimore trade. I wouldn't have been happy with what they gave up for that. Lattimore is great, but that's a rich trade. I don't know if I would have been okay with what they gave up for Mike Williams in Pittsburgh. I don't think so. I don't think the Ravens one, maybe. But again, we're talking about a rental without DJ Chark even playing a snap right now. And so as much as I want to think, oh, they could have gotten better. They could have brought in an interior offensive line. No interior offensive linemen were available at the deadline. They could have gotten more secondary help. Sure, they got the number one defense right now. And they've got guys that are coming off of IR soon, hopefully. So think of DJ Chark as a free agent, acquisition, trade deadline, whatever. Don't forget about Elijah Molden, brought in as a trade, who I don't want to say I told you so, but I was jumping for joy when that guy was brought in. I was jumping for joy when that guy was being drafted by Tennessee. Talk about a monumental trade that has paid dividends. Again, we're talking about a Chargers team that is 5-3 in spite of a poor start for the offense. Their offensive line was kind of banged up. Justin Herbert's gone through 2 crazy injuries. The receivers have been banged up. Gus Edwards has been on IR for a while. DJ Chark hasn't played a snap. Their defense is riddled with injuries. Joey Bosa has played a half a snap, it feels like. Asante Samuel Jr. on IR. Christian Fulton hasn't played much so far the last few weeks. And yet this Chargers team with 2 fifth-round rookies and this offense as it is 5-3. So, yes, I would have liked to see them make a move, but not just to make a move. And so you think about DJ Chark as essentially a trade deadline acquisition. Again, he has played 0 snaps. And I don't know if there's any receiver that was moved that was better than DJ Chark. Period. So, I'm okay with it. Jake, let's do a voicemail before we get to Chargers offense versus the Titans defense. And I think our friend Athir is here.
Dan, this is Athir. I don't know what has happened to you, my...
Oh, no. I'm getting called out.
Not even 3 seconds into this. Oh, good Lord.
But for the last 2 years, you have supported trash Staley, and now we have Coach Harbaugh. We're doing great. You're losing hope. You're losing faith. You're pessimistic. And you're becoming worst fan in Chargers history. Thanks, buddy. Love you.
Thanks, buddy.
Worst
Love
fan
you.
Ever. Love you, buddy.
Athir, what did I do?
I mean, look, yeah, there is some context to that because it is wild. You know, anybody that has listened to this show for the better part of the going on 5 years that we have had this going on, Dan Wolkenstein has been the consummate optimist through the Anthony Lynn coaching era, through the Brandon Staley coaching era. I don't know how Dan kept his sanity, which is why this whole turnaround where I was the negative one, now I'm the positive one. Even for when Dan and I came on this show to make the announcement that Jim Harbaugh was officially going to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Even when news followed afterwards that Jesse Minter was going to be coming as a defensive coordinator, Dan and I were jacked up after we listened to Ben Herbert be at the podium for the potential of what this culture change was going to bring to this team. And yet, despite all of that, Darth Dan has made a great appearance throughout the first half of this season. And I understand why a lot of people question that.
A bad fan of the worst Chargers fan?
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but you've definitely kind of turned your side of coin a little bit.
Look, and I get that. Again, I think I have, and it's a self-reflection here for a bit, and I'll own it. I think that I may have at times been tethered too far to hope and optimism without being brought back to what is actually happening in front of you and the reality and the facts and the stats and everything that you're seeing on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays.
That could be an understatement.
And so now it's not just rose-colored glasses. I speak it like I see it. And I did so previously, but I probably had some rose-colored glasses on a little too much.
Yeah, those were like 10-level thickness of rose-colored glasses that you had on.
But I'm sorry if I'm being a realist or more of a realist. The team is good at 5-3. They have opportunities to be much better. And anyone who says otherwise is not really being truthful. Yes, Kevin, everyone needs to adopt some Darth Dan. Can't get too optimistic. Got to keep context. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Man.
You know what? Where was all this talk for 3.5 years when the shoe was on the other foot? I used to get torched. Everybody would say that I'm a terrible person.
Yeah, go after Jake Vader here. Come on.
I mean, Jake Vader has maybe come on this show for about 5 minutes during this entire season.
You've been so happy.
It is now Luke Hefner or Jake Skywalker right now. That's how this has been.
Yes.
That's how a majority of this season has been for me. And I've got an ear-to-ear grin, and I have so much confidence for what this team is going to do. I'm not putting my head in the clouds to say Super Bowl or anything other, unrealistic. But it's a huge difference between what a well-run front office to coaching staff down is able to translate into a winning formula. And that has been the one thing that mired in mediocrity, okay with being middle of the pack, constant disappointment in terms of results that the Chargers were for the better part of a decade. And until something changed, it wasn't going to make me believe it. I believe it now.
Athir is here. Good morning, boys. Dan, you got my voicemail. And then he asks, are we live? No, we are not live. We are in the future. Sorry. Kevin says, Buddy has arrived in the chat. Yeah, we are live here. Thank you again for the $1.99. Appreciate it. And for flaming me at 8:20 in the morning. That feels fantastic.
Jake, you didn't have that one on your bingo card.
I did not, but here we are. Chargers offense versus Titans defense. A lot of excitement for Chargers offense kind of building up. Gus Edwards off of IR now. Maybe we see DJ Chark finally. Chargers getting healthier. Run game kind of showed itself again last week. You saw some big chunk plays down the field. So Chargers offense is looking like it's kind of going more towards the Justin Herbert side, letting him rip it, especially when healthy. Going to be a tall task this week, going up against a Titans team. Again, don't just look at the record. The Titans defense is nasty. Jake, what are your thoughts overall? Chargers offense, Titans defense. Where do you see some of the mismatches and key takeaways?
I mean, I think you can attack this secondary very well with L'Jarius Sneed being out for this game. So I think you're going to have plenty of opportunities to do so. Obviously, what is big for the Titans defense as it stands right now, you have to start in the middle as it relates to Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat in terms of the disruption that they can give. We've said it after the Cleveland Browns game, considering how the Chargers offensive line was once again yielding 6 sacks and turned out early in the game to be an Achilles heel for them. Watch them to attack the interior again. So Zion Johnson, Trey Pipkins, and Bradley Bozeman are going to have to put out a better output against 2 really big dudes.
One guy that I was wanting so bad in the draft.
But again, Dan, this kind of sounds like wash, rinse, repeat in terms of the Chargers' ultimate goal here. I think that as these weeks go on, you've seen more Justin Herbert than you've seen the run game. Now, I think that it's true that what Greg Roman said in the beginning of the season in terms of we're not always going to have the same game plan because we're going to prepare differently for different opponents, which, again, preparation is a verb that has not been used as it relates to coaching with the Chargers in 3.5 years. It was always just the same damn thing. Yes, that's what it felt like. Preparation H is what it felt like for 3.5 years. Now it's preparation P. Preparation P with a P.
Preparation, help me.
Anyways, I think that they're still going to find a good balance to the utilization in this offense, whether it's Justin Herbert. Obviously, we talked so much about DJ Chark and what he was going to bring to the passing game last week leading up to that Cleveland Browns game. I think we're finally going to see it this week. Now, what does that mean for DJ Chark when he comes back in terms of his utilization, in terms of his snap counts? Who knows? But in terms of the deep threat, and this is what's going to make Dan crack a smile, is you're going to see some of those deep balls probably being taken shots to DJ Chark, considering he's probably going to be the one that's going to be running a majority of those routes throughout this game. I would like to see Quentin Johnston have another elevated opportunity the way that he got against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, talk about a welcome back after injury. And you even heard Quentin Johnston after that game talk about, I had to make up for missed time. And sure enough, he did. Ladd McConkey, still after his 1 week after his 100-yard performance, is still continuing to be a vital piece of this offense. So moving forward, I think that you're going to be able to find your spots to attack this defense. Now, they are still very stingy at times. This is not going to be a situation where I think that you can just absolutely do whatever you want for them. But in terms of where the Chargers need to course correct a little bit is your offensive efficiency. You need to get out of these drills of third and out or 3 and outs, and offense is stalling. Your defense was able to make up for it and help you last week, considering the back and forth, your defense getting you turnovers and more opportunities. But when those opportunities come to you, and they should come to you this week, you have to figure out a way to capitalize and get points off of it. So that's probably the biggest thing that I would want to see, Dan. And as you said, do not underestimate this Titans team in general, and nor do I think that Jim Harbaugh is going to have them doing that. Considering what happened in Arizona, I think that was their wake-up call to not underestimate anybody going into any week. So I think from an offensive standpoint, you're going to be efficient. I think you can attack the middle of the field. I think you can take some deep shots. There's going to be some familiar faces across the defensive field, especially as it relates to a certain linebacker that you could possibly target for one of their weak spots. But Dan, I think that ultimately it comes down to the same formula. Offensive line needs to do a better job of protecting Justin Herbert. And when you could do that, the running game and the passing game is going to be able to thrive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in this chat are chatting about the interior for the Titans defense, and for good reason. Like, that's their strength. And that is probably the same sentiment for the most part that I fear as well. Chargers kryptonite so far has been the interior offensive line, especially on offense. And what the Titans do great is interior defensive line. And they got some dudes. You talk about Jeffrey Simmons, Trevondre Sweat, Harold Landry, Arden Key, familiar face, and SJD over there as well. They've got a good defense. And that defense is no joke on the inside. They're huge. Trevondre Sweat's pushing he's 380-ish? Like, that guy's massive. Jeffrey Simmons, arguably the best interior offensive lineman or interior defensive lineman in the NFL. So again, once more, this Chargers team is going up against a very good interior defensive line. They get after the quarterback. Can the Chargers interior offensive line do their job? Can they help the offensive tackles at times? Will they get chips from the tight ends, from running backs to be able to assist in pass protection? If they can keep the pocket somewhat clean, or at least force Justin Herbert or enable Justin Herbert to be able to roll out, this Titans defense can be had. But right now, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And again, you're talking about a Chargers offense that, for the most part, right? For the most part, this Chargers offense hasn't been fantastic the last couple weeks. It's been pretty good. But again, it's going to be tough. Timothy says Sawyer and Pipkins. Yeah, Sawyer, Pipkins, Johnson. Those are the three. We'll see. Sweat listed at 366. Yeah, I don't know exactly what he's listed at, but that's what I was thinking. Will Levis coming back. Maybe we can get him to give us a great pose for a pick. Oh, man, the next meme? That'd be great. Could we get another Nathan Peterman game? I was at the Chargers-Bills game however many years ago when Peterman threw 5 picks. Could we get another one of those? I don't know. If Jeffrey Simmons wrecks this game, I'm legally changing my name. Look, you thought early last week against the Browns, Myles Garrett wrecked shop. And that was against the tackles, not just the interior. The Chargers were able to adjust, and you didn't really hear much of him in the second half. That's a big deal. So, yeah, you see what happens when it gets wrecked by an opposing defense. So, let's see. Make these big bodies keep getting up. They get tired. Yes, that's one of the things that this Chargers team is kind of known for. That's one of the identities that this Chargers team is looking to kind of instill on their opponents and kind of continue to throw body punches and body punches and body punches. In the fourth quarter, you saw it this past game. They got the knockout punch. J.K. Dobbins ran over them. Touchdown. Game over. Yeah, you kind of want that. Jake, from a defensive perspective with Tennessee, if you were them, are you more worried about the run game for the Chargers with now Gus Edwards back, being able to kind of dictate terms and impose its will, or are you more worried about Justin Herbert slinging it? Like, if you're them, who would you be more worried about?
I would probably be more worried about Justin Herbert, honestly. The way that he's been playing over these last 3 weeks, you have to take account into that. The running game, while still being semi-productive, has kind of taken a back seat a little bit. Now, does that mean that the Chargers are going to all of a sudden go away from it? No, I think that they're going to still lean forward with their best foot to try to get the running game going. You know, J.K. Dobbins going off for 8 last week for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's still not the best performance that he's put up of the year, but that was still serviceable enough, even when he wasn't getting some of the best running lanes open, especially when you got down in the red zone. He was able to make something happen. You would hope that you're going to have better production in that in general between the 20s. We'll see. But Justin Herbert right now is playing with so much efficiency, just seems so in tune with Quinn Johnston and Ladd McConkey and the other receivers. It's truly feeling like, to me, Dan, and I'm not comparing the two, but I'm comparing the type of mentality between quarterbacks, whether it was Tom Brady or it was Patrick Mahomes, where it didn't matter who your wide receiver core was, you're going to find a way to get them the ball and give them opportunity. I've said this previously in other shows when we were having more discussions about Keenan Allen. When it was third down, we as a fan base watching this show, we knew where the ball was going on third down. It was always number 13.
Yep.
I think that with this new receiving core that you have right now, I think Justin Herbert has as much confidence to put it on the numbers of anybody as long as they're open. So there is an efficiency moving right now with Justin Herbert that we really have not seen. Even you go through his Rookie of the Year campaign. This still feels a little bit different. This seems more like a seasoned veteran with, as you've said, Dan, a little bit more emotion, a little bit more moxie, having the ability to make wise decisions, not putting the ball into tough spots for his receivers, putting it right where they can get it. And this is what you ultimately end up seeing when it's well-oiled and it moves. And you could see the Chargers putting up points above 20 and where they don't have to rely on shootout games, which they haven't had to yet. So this is the Justin Herbert 3.0, whatever the hell you'd want to call it. I still think that there has been a cultural coaching shift to put the ball more in Ten's hands, and we've seen the results over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Alan says, you really haven't been running down teams' defensive lines. I think he means running on them well. It's been kind of a feast or famine. And again, these are body blows. And towards the end of the game, when the big men are tired, hands on their hips, gassed, at the end of games, go look at that last touchdown drive by the Chargers. They ran down the defensive line's throat and ended it. Does it happen all 4 quarters? No. But if you continue to lean on them throughout the game, the idea is by the end of the game, they will be tired and you can dominate and impose your will. Switching it up, Jake. Chargers versus the Titans. Other side. Chargers defense, number 1 scoring defense in the NFL going into week 10. I just get chills saying that every time. Sounds so good. Versus the Tennessee offense that is not number 1. Set the stage for us.
You know, we laud this Chargers defense seemingly every single week, and deservingly so, given the fact that they have only given up 20 points one time this season, which was something that's been unheard of for this team. More so, Dan, here's the key stat from Brett Coleman, because this came out yesterday that he put out. The Chargers are only allowing 12.6 points per game, and that is a stat that has not been rivaled since the Baltimore Ravens of 2006. Damn. It's pretty good. And look, you can say whatever you want in terms of the schedule. The Chargers don't make the schedule, all right? It didn't matter even if you took this same schedule and you put it on the other previous coaching regimes, you know that those stats would not be similar. We all know this. And that's talking about teams with a huge crop of free agent signings that were supposed to come in and make a difference for you defensively, and it didn't. So it's coaching at the end of the day that has really moved the needle for this defense. And Dan, this is going to be an interesting performance, because not only do you have Will Levis coming back off of his AC joint surgery injury, and he's been out for the last 3 weeks. So this will be his first game going up against one of the best defenses in the league. On top of that, the Tennessee Titans offensive line has suffered a number of different injuries, and one in particular being Lloyd Cushenberry, that was out, unfortunately, for the year on IR. And that's huge in terms of the injuries that they have suffered so far. That was one that they really couldn't afford to have. So what is that going to look like? I think you still even have I'm forgetting the name now off the top of my head, but there's another guard for the Tennessee Titans that's coming in for questionable in this game. So they've got injuries all over the place as it relates to protection. So how is that going to hold up? On top of that, you still have Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley as the wide receiver options for them. They're fully ready to go. Tajay Spears is coming back for this game as well. So it looks like they're going to have their full complement of weapons. But when you look at what the Chargers have gone up against over the past 3, call it 4, if you include the Denver Broncos game into that. The one thing that has really stood out is that you were dealing with mobile quarterbacks. That's kind of been the one similarity. Even if Jameis Winston isn't as fast as some of those other guys, he still was able to make plays with his feet. And so it's been about containment, and it's been about taking certain players away. And I don't think that it's going to be any different this week for this team. And I think that this is going to be another example of the Chargers pass rush that, as of 3 weeks ago, most recently in that Arizona game, that seemingly just kind of went away. And, Joey Bosa wasn't back yet, but Thule wasn't really contributing to that point as much as we thought he was. And then all of a sudden, it seems like it's woken up a sleeping giant over the last couple of weeks, because the Chargers pass rushers, whether we're talking about interior defensive linemen, off the edge, secondary sacks, they have been able to get after and disrupt the quarterback, even on a low blitz rate, Dan, which has also been impressive. So if the Chargers are able to, and they should, do their type of game of scoring early, staying ahead of the sticks, and their defense holding opponents down to 3 and outs and not scoring anything, which has been the trend for them these last couple of weeks, this should be a very simple game plan to follow.
Optimistic Athir is here. $4.99 donation. Thank you so much, Athir. He says, Jake, this week is practice to me. My question is how Coach Minter defends the Bengals' potent offense. I know we saw Kansas City, but Burrow has Chase, not Mahomes. Don't do it here.
Look, again, do not underestimate the Titans. I know everything that I just said in terms of what I laid out for them to do defensively, that should be the game plan. But even Jesse Minter has been pissed off after wins for things that the defense didn't do, whether that was bad tackling or being out of formation or not being around the football or making costly mistakes or wrong type of anticipation. He's talked all about that. You would probably never hear from a more sad emotion than like semi-sad emotion after a win than Jesse Minter, because he's always just looking to the next thing and how this defense can get better. And that's how disciplined he is. In terms of looking forward to Cincinnati, it's you know that you're going to have to cover Jamar Chase. I mean, my God, if the Brinks truck isn't backing up to his house today, it needs to be backing up soon to have that type of performance. Technically, two of those type of performances against
them,
the same team. It just shows you how valuable he is. And that was even the Bengals running up the score like that without T. Higgins. So I don't care about Cincinnati's defense. That's going to be a real test for the Chargers because they have not been able to really get into those shootout type of situations. And as much as we like to talk about the Chargers surrendering certain points for a period of time, Cincinnati's not going to be one of those type of teams. That will be a situation where you may find yourself in a game where it's 35 to win the game. It would not surprise me.
I'm not even going to be freaking talking about the Bengals right now. I'm not doing it. But I will say, I'm glad I had Lamar Jackson on my fantasy team this week because I went up against Joe Burrow.
There it is. And you weren't playing against any of Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase, I take it.
I'm playing against Joe Burrow. So I'm lucky that I have Lamar Jackson, who was marginally less, but whew, I'll take it. Jake, I wanted to kind of do some revisionist history here for a second. Let's take the way back machine. We talked about the Chargers defense not giving up 20 points this season, more than 20 points so far this season. I'm going to give you some numbers last season, just one season ago. This Chargers defense. Week 1 gave up 36 points in a loss. Week 2 gave up 27 points in a loss. Week 3 gave up 24 points. Win. Week 4 gave up 17. Sweet. Week 6 gave up 20, 31 the next week, 13 the next week. Then later on in the season, they gave up 38, they gave up 20, they gave up 20, they gave up 23, 24, 63, 24. And as we're through 10 weeks and they haven't done it once. They haven't done it once. Now you can say, oh, but look at the schedule, look at the teams they got up against. Chargers went up against some bad offenses last year and gave up more than 20. Okay. So I know people are already talking about, I think I saw the chat earlier where, well, we'll find out who this Chargers defense is when they go up against a really good team. John says, Burrow and Lamar will tell us what we really need to know about our defense. They already went up against Mahomes. Now, has Mahomes' offense been outstanding? No, but Mahomes' offense always scores enough to win. The defense helps out a ton. But sure, will it be nice to see this Chargers defense go ball out against a great offense again? Sure. But I don't need to see that to know this is a great defense. Questions in here, Jake, about Asante Samuel Jr. I believe he is now technically through the 4-week window, I think. So he could return if they wanted him to. It doesn't sound like he's ready yet. I haven't seen anything about him. But talk about stepping up. Without Christian Fulton, without Asante Samuel Jr., Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, Elijah Molden, Jazir Taylor have been sensational. And Eli Apple throw in the mix. Think about the names that you're hearing right now contributing to this Chargers vaunted defense right now and how successfully connected this secondary is. Yeah, Asante Samuel Jr. being out hurts. But you wouldn't notice it on the field. And that, my friends, is coaching.
You're down your 1 and your 2 cornerbacks, it looks likely, because Christian Fulton's doubtful going into this game once again, so that would mean he would miss his second game. Dan, this is Jesse Minter, this is Steve Klinkscale at their finest in terms of what they have been able to do with rookie talent, with guys who have just arrived to the team just a couple months ago. This is how in tune they are with getting their players ready to play. And I don't care who it is. They have a mentality that has been instilled in them to have them ready for any type of situation right now. If it means that Elijah Molden is going to be playing some more hybrid corner than safety, he's going to be ready for that. He's proven that already for the production that he's been able to put up since he arrived with this team. Tarheeb Still has turned out to be a phenomenal slot corner when Jasir Taylor has not been in there.
Jake and I talked about at the beginning of the season during training camp that Tarheeb Still is probably going to take over the starting job.
Christian Fulton, Asante Samuel Jr. out. Cam Hart has stepped in extremely well outside of the few penalties that he had in the Arizona game. And these are 2 fifth-round picks that are already you're reaping benefits off of. So in terms of the secondary in general, that's just the secondary, Dan. I'm not talking even about the linebacker group that's being coached by Navarro Bowman. The defensive line, which you've been able to find more production with Tahir Tart, who's been a very valuable piece for this. I was really hoping that Christian Fulton was going to be able to make this game because technically you've got 4 Titans now on this roster, 3 of them being on defense. That's going to be a nice revenge game, if you will, between Tahir Tart, Christian Fulton, and Elijah Molden. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like Fulton's going to be out there this week. But just collectively as a defense, they are playing as a unit. And that's why you see the strong performances since week 1 from this team. And yes, are there going to be some plays that they will give up? Are they going to have some instances where they're not tackling well? Sure. But what we have noticed is that while you can move the ball against through the 20s on them, when it comes to the red zone, the Chargers tighten the screws. And that's why you see the scoring differential so good for the Chargers in terms of what they have allowed through these 8 games.
Couple questions here. 1 point, Asante Samuel Jr. from Allen is going to have a hard time getting back on the field as a starter. I mean, think about it. Who are you replacing him with right now? If you're Jesse Minter, the coaching staff has this philosophy of the more guys that play, the better. So I think it would end up being a rotation. It's not like he's going to be swapped in for every snap of somebody else's. But right now, who are you replacing him with? Honestly.
I mean, when Asante comes back, he's obviously going to still be CB1. Let's make that clear.
Is he?
Yeah, just hang on a minute. Let me finish. And this is my explanation on it. Whoa. So where did the snaps give up? I mean, you still have Dean Leonard out, which is still going to give up a number of snap opportunities to either Cam Hart or Tarheeb Still. But I'll be interested to see where they play Asante Samuel Jr., considering the fact that Cam Hart has done such a good job on the outside. We still don't know how long the lingering injury to Christian Fulton is going to be out. So does that mean that he's going to come back next week and then Cam Hart's just going to be relegated to a backup role? No, I don't think so. I think that Jesse Minter will find a way. If you have guys that are performing this well during a period of time where your 2 starters are injured, you're not going to just stop them from playing. If it means rotation of corners, if it means that Asante Samuel Jr. ends up coming back and being more of a rotational corner between the outside and the slot in certain situations, again, think about your chess pieces here for the standpoint of not having to have someone that you have to make up lack of production on, but how you build it, how you mold it, how you make your secondary more versatile. We've said this numerous times that the chess piece that you have in Derwin James allows flexibility all over the defense. You're allowed more flexibility along the defense for the fact that Elijah Molden has been playing the way that he's playing and that he's capable of playing both safety and corner. You're allowed more flexibility when you have the likes of Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still playing the way that they're playing as 5th-round rookies. Now add in Asante Samuel Jr. and Christian Fulton to that, and more specifically Christian Fulton, because when he's been on the field, he has been fantastic this year. Dan, just think about that for a second and go back to Steve Klingscale's message before the season. I'm going to have all these guys ready to play when those situations turn up. And he was talking about injuries. And he has 100% kept his promise on that because the product on the field has been an exact extension of that.
I like Asante Samuel Jr., and I think he has improved. Are there issues with tackling? Yes. Do I think that he's CB1? That's a hot take for this Chargers team. I don't think he's CB1 personally. I would definitely put Fulton there ahead of him. And right now, it's tough to not put either Tarheeb or Cam Hart with how they've played so far. But I do think you talk about kind of the chess pieces between Asante Samuel Jr. versatility, Elijah Bolden's versatility, Tarheeb Still's versatility, Derwin James versatility. That's a lot of versatility in a secondary. And Jesse Minter thrives on having a rotation of versatility. And so I don't think it's going to be, Asante's going to replace Tarheeb or whoever. I think it'll be just a heavier rotation.
That's how I believe it. I don't think that he's going to come in and replace one person or the other, considering how well that both of them have been playing. But you have now Elijah Molden position versatility, Tarheeb Still position versatility, Asante Samuel Jr. when he returns position versatility, Derwin James position versatility. I mean, look at all this. Normally you just have one guy, and that would be Derwin James that does all that. Now you've got several.
Chargers defense going up against the Titans offense. I mean, it's Tony Pollard's show, obviously. Calvin Ridley is there. But, until they got a quarterback, you got to think Jesse Minter is licking his chops right now. And what has Jesse Minter done or not done to make you believe that he's not going to take advantage of this matchup? If you stop Tony Pollard, both out of the backfield and as a pass catcher, this Titans offense is just going to be chucking it to Chargers players to catch. Doesn't matter if it's Mason Rudolph or Will Levis, which it will be Will Levis. We've seen the memes of Will Levis this year. Jesse Minter's defense has thrived against every quarterback, but specifically quarterbacks who have a propensity to give it up. Just look last week to Cleveland. So stop Tony Pollard. Contain Calvin Ridley. Akine, maybe. But you'll take your chances with this secondary going up against those receivers every day of the week. If you can stop the run game, which has been such a big priority for this Chargers team going back to the offseason, this Chargers team should walk out with a victory.
Yeah, and the easiest way to take away the opposing team's running game is being able to be more efficient in scoring for the offense. So it does go both ways to help the defense in this circumstance. So, but yeah, Dan, back to your point, Will Levis on the year has thrown just over, 650 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the year.
5 and 7.
Yes, very prone to turning the ball over. And this is going into a second year with a weaker offensive line with not as many weapons as he once had a long time ago. There is no King Henry in that backfield that you have to worry about. Although Tony Pollard and Tajee Spears are both serviceable running backs in terms of what they can bring to the field. But this is no different, Dan. You take away the running game, you put Will Levis in 3rd and long situations, forcing him to throw. The way that this defense has been covering wide receivers lately, the way that the middle of the field has been doing better in coverage against tight ends, these are opportunities that you can take away from the Titans. And conversely on that, you have to be able to score offensively to really put them in a situation to where they're going to come out and throw a majority of time on their drops. And if you get to that point, Jesse Minter is going to have, whether it's Joey Bosa, Khalil, Mack, Tooley, Bud Dupree, Morgan Fox, he's going to start getting in his bag and opening up that playbook and coming after the quarterback. And that's when things can get really difficult on opposing quarterbacks, the likes of Will Levis.
Will Levis has a QBR so far this season through 5 games of a whopping 26.8. 26.8. Both quarterbacks, whether it's Rudolph or Levis, get pressured like crazy with that Titans offensive line. Talk about Tony Pollard. He has over 100 more rushing attempts than anybody else on this team. Tajee Spears, 33, Tony Pollard, 142 attempts. And targets out of the backfield, Calvin Ridley is the only player that has more targets than Tony Pollard. After Tony Pollard is Tyler Boyd. Stop Tony Pollard, you stop the Titans. Period. If you let them hang around, if you let this defense hang around, their defense is good. They could take advantage of Chargers' mistakes on offense, and they will. I fully expect that. But if you can stop Tony Pollard and make Will Levis beat you, make Will Levis beat Jesse Minter? Come on now. So, anything else on Chargers defense versus Titans offense? This seems like, again, you're talking about a defense that takes the ball away at high numbers. Talk about a defense that stops opposing quarterbacks very well. They've been pretty good against the run. Going up against a Titans offense that gives up pressures, that doesn't have a passing game, and has a running back that can be stopped if you have the horses to do it. Like the way, I mean, the path to success for Tennessee is fairly narrow, in my opinion. They have to have a great game from Tony Pollard. They're going to have some ball bouncing luck. Something's going to have to be a fluke play of some sort. I just don't see. Otherwise, their defense has to ball out and score touchdowns. Because otherwise, the Chargers, I just don't see how they lose this.
No, I'm with you, Dan.
So, we're at the point where we get to do bold predictions and final score predictions. What would you like to do first?
Start with the bold. Let's go with it.
Okay. This Chargers team, it's been a minute since we can say that they have severely outcoached the opposing teams consistently. And granted, there were a couple games that the Chargers have had missteps. Again, that Cardinals game specifically. But you think about the identity in this Chargers team and how far it's come along. Jorge says it. Jim is him. Jim is him. And you want to talk about Joe Ortiz being, I saw this earlier in the chat, being up there in discussions for GM of the year. I don't think you can look at another team, maybe the Commanders, that has a more change year over year than this Chargers team. The coaching matchup matters, and coaching matters. So, bold prediction? I think you'll see a defensive touchdown.
There it is. I knew you were going to go defensive with your bold prediction.
You have to. You have to. In fact, we haven't done a giveaway in a bit. We got to do a giveaway.
Sounds like a good idea.
Stay tuned on Chargers Unleashed on X for a giveaway opportunity. I'll go defensive touchdown for the Chargers and no touchdowns allowed.
All right. Not bad considering that the Chargers only gave up a touchdown literally in garbage time once over the past 2 weeks, whether we're talking between the Saints and the Browns game. So against in this particular matchup, it's not necessarily, in my opinion, I don't think that's so far-fetched if they go out and do what they are supposed to do. Dan, I'm going to go to the other side of the ball. I'm going to hearken back to my first bold prediction that I had going into this season, go back to week 1 against the Raiders. I said that J.K. Dobbins was going to go over 100 yards and have a touchdown. Didn't quite. It came close. But in general, I'm getting those type of feelings again. So if you want to be bold, let's go bold.
Against Jeffrey Simmons, Trevondre Sweat.
I'm not talking about J.K. Dobbins. That's the best part.
Okay, here we go. All right.
Last week, I said after the Ladd McConkey 100-yard game, I said that there were going to be 2 receivers that were going to have 100-yard games, and almost got it. Almost got it. DJ Chark is going to make his debut.
Ooh, I like this.
And he's going over 80 yards, and he's going to have a tutty.
DJ Chark, touchdown, 80 yards.
Yes.
Okay. Athir, another $5 donation. Gotta say it. I'm going to hate Roman forever. I swear to God, if he doesn't let Herbert cook versus the Bengals and Ravens, sorry ass defense. Thank you, Jake, for my question. Again, I'm not talking about the Bengals. Definitely not talking about the Ravens. But Athir, you can. That's fine. Alex says, who's DJ Chark? Krista Guzman says, Dithley touchdown. That'd be a good one. This is due for sure. Eddie says, Dobbins is back. Disley has been way better than expected. Puna Ford has been a beast. Henley has been a beast. Fulton has been a beast with good help from our depth. 100%. Kevin with the bold prediction. Thule interception. Will Levis can easily be fooled. Already has been intercepted by a dropping edge rusher. Yeah, I'm with you. Corey, Ladd, and QJ with 100 yards with the Chark touchdown. No more emo Dan, says Jorge.
Not today.
Not today.
This is Dapper Dan today. You see that haircut?
Dapper Dan. Happy Dan. Happy Dan.
In Boston, after the Arizona game, that was definitely emo Dan. No question. When Dan was on the road, that was definitely emo Dan. Both in appearance and his feelings was emo Dan.
Yeah. Athir gives a bold prediction. Ladd and Herbert connect 3 touchdowns and Chargers win 34-6. I got to give Athir credit. Someone in the chat talked about this last week. Athir's bold prediction, I think it was his game prediction final score, would have been correct if they did not, if Cameron Dicker made his field goal an extra point. So he was close. He was close. So, final score prediction. Jake, Blink-182. Okay, now we're talking my language. Jorge, Blink-182, all-time 1A, 1B favorite bands of all time for me. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Appreciate it. Edsky says, DJ Chark equals Manti Te'o. Girlfriends doesn't exist. Come on. Come on. Eddie has a question for you, Jake. Dan and Jake. So officially, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Trey Pipkins are officially the weakest links on our 2024 Bolts. I think if you're talking honestly,
yes. Yeah, there's no sugarcoating that. That's been obvious in the way that Rashawn Slater and Joe Alta performed in contrast to how they have performed and in contrast to where opposing defenses have been able to get through and create pressure to Justin Herbert. So yeah, I don't think that that's a hot take or a big argument. I think that that's just being honest. That's where the Chargers ultimately have to improve. And Dan and I have said this. There's nobody that's coming through that door right now in terms of personnel that's going to make anything better. So what do? You have to make good with the personnel that you have. And hopefully, especially as it relates to this game against the Titans and even moving forward, every week is another opportunity for you to get better. And as it relates to Zion, Bradley, and Trey, they've essentially been trying to get better for several weeks now. But now you're getting into the thick of your schedule where they're really going to need you. And hopefully that's going to be something that with time and more repetitions that towards the end of the season, you're going to see much better output from them.
Before we get to final score predictions, Michael Garcia, and this is really interesting. And I couldn't say I'm surprised to see this coming. $5 donation. Thank you, Michael. Isn't it crazy that when Herbert was putting crazy stats, but the team was losing, the media would kill him? And now Burrow does the same, and he's praised. Burrow is lighting it up, still losing. I feel for him. Justin Herbert's like, yeah, I know that life. Again, Justin Herbert quietly is starting to get into those MVP conversations. It's starting. Again, is he up there with Lamar? No. But look at some of the stats of Justin Herbert right now. Granted, the volume of numbers aren't there, but the efficiency.
The efficiency has been fantastic. Look, I think Joe Burrow, for what he has constantly been able to do with more production. I mean, remember, even the Cincinnati Bengals start off notoriously slow and are still somehow, some way able to climb their way back and make it to the playoffs. So if you just look at it from a resume standpoint in terms of accomplishments, yeah, Joe Burrow has much more accomplishments, especially postseason, than what Justin Herbert has. Justin Herbert, though, I still think came in with the veil of the Charger, or the term chargering, that hung over this franchise for years. And unfortunately, due to poor coaching, poor front office, those lingering things that were still in existence back in the days of Phillip Rivers were still happening. And I think that that's why the media took the perspective that they had. It's that anytime that you can put the Chargers in a playoff game, watch out for that to happen. And sure enough, it happened multiple times during that Jacksonville debacle that we want to forget about faster than we actually can. So I don't think it's really a one-to-one argument between what Burrow gets criticized over and what Justin Herbert has been criticized over, because it's two different things. But ultimately, I think you've kind of seen the pendulum shift a little bit in how the media is portraying Justin Herbert and this Chargers team as a whole for what they have been able to do.
Jorge says Justin Herbert. I like that. Corey, bold prediction. Herbert wins the next 3 primetime games to leap into MVP consideration. If Justin wins the next 3 primetime games, he absolutely will be.
You'll start hearing him talking about it. That's for sure.
Yep. Kevin says Joe Burrow had to carry the Bengals plane back home to Cincinnati. We've seen the shoulders being lifted with Justin Herbert in losses, and it's been brutal. Alex, I haven't heard from Emmanuel Acho in a while. Agreed. Timothy, 31-6 Bolts. 27-9, says Robert Jimenez. Brian asks, Dan is always at the games. Best player you have an autograph from? Best player.
That's a good question.
I mean, I have Justin's, so I got to say Justin. But we've also got Charlie Joyner, Kellen Winslow, Antonio Gates. We've got a lot of folks from the greats. Lorenzo Neal. We've got what else we got? We got Derwin. We've got a bunch, but I guess it'd probably be Justin. Jake, what would yours be? Dan Fouts got his too.
It's a variety of different ones, and I think I can kind of just relate it to the moment. And mine's a little bit more versatile. It might maybe not necessarily just relate to the Chargers, but like I've got a Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder boxing glove of mine that has both of their signatures. That was right going up to their third fight. I've got Phillip Rivers' signature. I've got Derwin's. I have a personalized one from Donnie Edwards, believe it or not, on the back of his jersey from way back in the day. I've got some good ones. I always look at it's a black Chargers football that I have at the bottom of my cabinet. And when I used to just go to training camps as a spectator before, Dan and I would start doing things like this and not bringing the football for autographs anymore, when we were just going to be there over the fence, you'd be surprised at the number of autographs that are on that. It is definitely a hodgepodge collection of a number of different Chargers over that 2008 to 2012 period. So you probably could find a few signatures in there of a Legadou Nane that's on there, some special teams players that are on there, a Jonas Mouton that's on there. So I always look at that in terms of just good memories, because the football is just absolutely filled with signatures, but it's just knowing kind of where we've come from those San Diego days and those players that were on that team at that period of time, what it was like, and to still see those collection of signatures makes me smile.
Jorge's got a Jonas brother. Shout out to San Diego, Tony Gwynn. I've got that ball signed, and also have a personal one from Mickey Mantle.
Very nice.
Which I love to have. All right, Jake, here we go. Final score prediction. What say you?
It's hard to have any other type of feeling about this, specifically defensively, when we've just seen Jesse Minter do this week in and week out, whether it's against better quarterback competition or less competition. I don't think that this is going to be any different for him. I think that this team is going to become fully prepared coming into this game. And do I see it being a shootout? No, absolutely not. Do I see it being a shutout? No. But personally, I would be surprised if the if the Titans score more than 10 points in this game, the way that Jesse Minter's defense has been playing. So given that, I think that the offensive efficiency that Greg Roman has put a more focus on to get them out of these 3-and-out stints that have plagued them over the past few weeks at certain points of the game, I think is going to be a major focus. As Greg Roman said, when someone asked him, what's your identity? He said, trying to win the next game. And that's going to mean by a variety of means necessary. So whether it's from the running game or by Justin Herbert's arm, I think you're going to see this Chargers offense do what it has done for the last several weeks and get off to a fast start, put up a good number of points that is going to force the Titans into desperate situations, and sometimes those can lead to turnover-worthy mistakes. So I'll take final score of 24-10 Chargers.
A lot of bold score predictions here. 27-13 Chargers, 24-13 Chargers, 72-0 Chargers. So it'll be interesting. 22-7 Chargers win. I think I'm going to go 27-9. 27-9 Chargers. And again, not an easy 27-9, but I think they'll get 27-9. 6-3 headed to week 11, I think will be big. This is a big game for them. They got teams that are very, very tough coming up. 6-3 would be huge. Again, I had the beginning of the season pegged at 10-7. They're on their way. They still got winnable games down the stretch against some bad teams, but they got to win the game they should. And this is a game that they absolutely should win. This has been fun. We love doing the live shows. Alex Silva in Arnold voice, Jake. What did he say?
Go Chargers, go.
Thank you. See, I knew I couldn't do that as well as you. I know my limits, and I know what you're good at. Kevin says, I'm betting the over team total over 23.5. Jake, anything else you want to tell the great friends before we step on out of here for the weekend?
It's going to be a good weekend for football in general. Start with today, college football, a lot of great matchups, things to watch. It should be a very enjoyable Saturday for everyone. And continue with a nice week of football, specifically as it relates to the Chargers. Again, if they go in there with how they have handled business throughout these first 8 weeks, they should be able to institute their game plan against the Tennessee Titans. Not looking at it as a trap game at all. I think it's all business heading into this game. And hopefully when it comes to Monday, Dan and I will have briskets on the barbecue, and then we will be talking about a victory Monday.
Briskets on the Barbie, W's in the win column. Let's hope for both. For Jake Hefner, you can find him at Jake T. Hefner on X, myself at Dan W. Sports. If you have not done so already, please take 10 seconds as I'm spewing this end result to hit that like and subscribe. It helps out a ton. This has been fun. We love doing live shows. We'll do these again. Be on the lookout for a giveaway coming up soon. But until next time, we'll talk to you next on the next Chargers Unleashed. Enjoy the weekend, everybody, and go Bolts.